Hey guys, Mr. Riz here. So I'm going to help you guys out with the next day, the 323 part 1. So we are skipping 322 if you're really concerned about the numbering of our activities. But we're going to go through part 1 and part 2 today, the first day. So we're going to look at for loops and the range function. So let's start part 1. We got a nice little quiz here that we'll walk through together and make sure you guys get this problem answered. All right, so iteration and count. So our goal here is to make sure we can learn to create, manipulate, and access lists in Pythons. And we're going to develop a program using tracer rounds. And then we'll also pair program to develop code that solves a problem and generates understanding. So what we're going to look at today are for loops. So we've already seen iteration in the MIT App Inventor if you've taken the CSE class, and even a little bit in Python in the previous activity. So in Python, you can use for loops and while loops to accomplish some iteration. Anything can be done with one type of loop with some modification and can be done with another one. So you can always use a for loop or you can use a while loop. They do the same tasks. Some are just easier at certain tasks to do certain things, but technically you can always use the same loop each and every time. So most of the common needs for a Python programmer has to do with the action within every element in a list. In the last activity, we were going to loop through some code through the skeleton, and we used a reference here. Now, the reference we used was for every post in the post list, and we've done this before, like for every letter in this word, or for every answer in the user answer, we would do something. So the keywords contained are the word for. We have the variable identifier, which is post, which is used to reference the elements of that list. We have the keyword in, describing, okay, we're going to look in somewhere, and then the variable containing a list. So we always have the word for to start the loop. We name a variable for every element in, and then we name the list. So the colon here is the character to show the end of the index line to make sure we can end at the next line. So make sure we understand kind of these key identifiers. So if you've taken the CSE course, you've probably seen this type of language here. So this is the loop structure used in a different, programming language, but the syntax and the abstractions levels are basically the same thing. So we could say for every post in the list here, we could then set the print value text to be the post. So we just say, okay, for every post in the list, we're going to print the post, which is what we've been doing. So the functionality of this structure is to take the first element in the list and store it in the variable item, then execute all the statements in the indented block that follows. In this case, we would print the element. So moving on to the next element in the post list. So we'd go through, we'd make the variable, the first thing in our list here, we make it equal to post. And what do? We post that. And we move on to the next one. We make that equal to the variable post, and we print post, which was the last variable. So we can go through this example here to make sure we understand what's going on. So I have my list equals 0, 1, 2 for every number in my list. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to the my list, and for every number in it, we're going to first start with the 0, and we're going to make that equal to number, and we're going to print number. Once we execute that, we move on to the next item in the list, which would be 1. We make that equal to number, and then we print that. Then we move on to, we finish that loop here. We're done with step 4. We move on here. We got one more item in the list, so we'll make 2 equal to number, and then we would print that. And so if we run this, you guys can see we get 0, 1, 2. Because we print 0, then we moved on, we print 1, then we moved on, and we print 2. So just to show you too, like if I did print A and run this, you can see I have, oh, it's kind of hard to see here, 0A, 1A, 2A, because we went through, we made 0 equal to number, we printed that, and then we printed A. And then we moved on to the next one, we printed the number. And so we can use this to go on and move forward and forth. So after you type the line containing the for loop, we press enter typically. This will make the indentation automatically pop up. Okay. So when you're done typing these statements in the body of your for loop, you can press enter at the finally list prompts to execute. Now that works down here. I would say let's build it in the code editor. We're going to do more structure. So if I really wanted to, I can put it down in this executable part. I would have to just set up all the variables. Like I could say like, my list equals 1, 2, 3. And I could say for every, not for every, for every number in my list, print number. So you can build it in this code editor, but you can see like, yeah, sometimes we get some indentation errors. I probably spelled something wrong. Print on it. Yeah. So even this, I'd say with Ripple, use the code editor up top. It seems to automatically do everything for you. Okay, so next let's look at this exam code here. We got x equals 0. We're going to try to guess what the output statement would be here. My list equals 0, 1, 2, 3. So for every number in my list, x equals x plus the number. Then you can see this print statement here is not inside the loop. It is after the loop. So can we try to think of what the print statement would be for this? So let's see, take a second, think about it. So we first start out x is 0. So for every number in my list, we're going to make 0 equal to, we're going to change the value of x to equal, it was 0 plus the first number is 0. Okay, then we're going to go on and make number equal to 1. So then our x is going to equal, it was 0 plus 1 equal 1 now. So now we go on to 2, make number equal to 2. Our x is going to equal, well, it was 1 plus 2 would be 3. So if we could print off the list at the end, that should say, or print off x, x should be 3. So let's test this out, see if it is right. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the x equals 0 to the line of code above. For every number in my list, we're going to make x equal x plus number. And then after the loop, we're going to print x. Oh, didn't mean to do that much. Oh no. Oh, really? All right. Yeah, okay, we get 3 here. So there we go. Yeah, I had to open that up in a new tab. Okay, not too bad there. So we get 3 because we went through. So let's go through here and see if we can answer this question. So select the correct output here. New lines are separated by commas. Okay. So we got student list equals Jack, Jill, John, and names equal blank. So for every name in student list, names equal names plus name. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this blank string names and we're going to every single time we go through the list add the name in the student list. So we first start with Jack, then we add Jill, and then we add John. So the question is that Jack, Jill, John separated, Jack, Jill, John all together, Jack, then Jack, Jill, John. Okay, so let's look at this print statement is inside the for loop, or is it Jack, Jack, Jack? Okay, so maybe we want to go up here and edit this just to double check this, and totally fine, we can do this. There we go. So I think it was called student names, student list equals Jack, Jill, John, name equals a blank string for every, or no, that's names. Name in student list. Names equal names plus name. Print name. All right, so we're going to have that inside the for loop. And I'm going to run this off and we get Jack, Jill. Oh, I think, is it print name or print names? Oh, that's print names. Jack, Jill, John. So you can see here we're building each time we went through. We start off with Jack and then we add the next letter or next word right next to it, Jill and John. So it is Jack, Jill, John. Which of the following output codes would have the statement 5, 15, 30? Okay, so let's see. If we notice one thing here about this is we are building the structure each time. So we can kind of, Are all these really similar? Okay, so let's see. These first two are very similar, except for it's mindless. So I'm going to just write this one here to see if we get the answer. So mindless equals 5, 15, 30. And then what do we got after that? Answer equals 0. For every number in mindless, answer equals answer plus number. Zero. For every is it number in it, it really doesn't matter, but for every number in my list, okay. Number in my list, answer equals answer plus number. And then the first one has it not tapped in, so we're going to say print answer. So if I run this here, the first one, choice A, I get just one line that says 50. Okay, so that's not right. That's not the right answer. Okay, so let's see if I tap that in, if that makes a difference. Okay, I did it again. So I'm going to tap in the print statement to be included, and I'll run that off. I don't know why the old line of code pops up there. I get 5, 20, 50. So it goes in the right order. I have three numbers, but they are not the right. I want 5, 15, 30. So maybe it will be the same thing, but different lists in here. So I'm going to make it the same thing. Maybe choice D here looks right, but I'm going to change it to 5, 10, 15 in my list here. So 5, 10, 15, which, okay, if we run it, starts to make sense. 5, 15, 30. There we go. So that would be choice D. All right, so submit that quiz. Did we get everything right? Oh, fingers crossed. Yeah, we sure did. Okay, let's move on to the next quiz. So we're going to do part 1 and part 2 today. All right, now what we're going to do is look at the range function. This is used a lot in a for loop. So another useful function in Python is the range function. The range function identifies a number to start at, a number to stop at, and how much to change the number each time. And it will loop through it as many times as necessary to get to the end value. So as a previous loop structure, this image shown in the block-based coding is a higher level of abstraction. So when you guys did CSE, you might have seen this for every number from 1 to 5 by 1, meaning we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically, a range is a shorter version way of writing a list of all those numbers. So like say I wanted to go through like every number 1 through 100, I could make a list that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 100. But what would probably be easier here is to use this range function to help us out. So we would say range 1, 100, 1, meaning we're going to go start at 100 or start at 1, stop at 100, and go up by 1 each time. So if the syntax is not exact, the loop will not execute. So the range control block is a great way to start thinking about Python code. The first argument of that number is the start at, the second number is which to stop, and the third, which is optional, is the increment value. So if we don't put this number in here, it will just go ahead and just go up by 1. In fact, if we don't put a start, it will actually start at 0 each time. So, okay. So the square brackets in the documentation of a function is a method in Python that will indicate that the parts inside the brackets is optional. In fact, there should be an optional one here for the start as well. If you include that part, do not include the brackets. So don't use any confusion here with the brackets and the brackets including a list. It's just to make sure that we know that that part is optional. So here we go. Let's change this up. Now I have A equals range number, A equals list A, print A. So just to show you here, I'm not going to use numbers because if I run this, we get an error. But if I just put a number in here, so let's say 1, 10. I could print it off and I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We stop because we stop at 10. We don't include it. So the same thing here, I could do 5, 30. This might be a little too big. But okay, now 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and all the way stop at 29. And now I could do 5, 30, 4. You can see 5, 9, 13. So it's the same list, but we only go up by 4. So some things we could do here just to make it life easier. I could do 20, comma, 1, comma, -2. And you can see we start at 20 and we stop when we get down to 1 and we go down by 2. So that increment number, we can use negatives to go up or down. Some things just to show you, if I just do 5, this was a new thing that they updated with Python. So we start with 0. So if you don't include a start, it's going to start with 0 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, stop because we got to 5. All right, so what integer would we have to replace numbers with to have an output of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So the integer we would have to use here, think about it, we would have to just use 11 because we stop when we get to 10. All right, so we've kind of messed around here with the range so you guys can see what happens when we add or subtract or zeros and the negatives. So what we're going to do here is to try to match this output. So what would range 7 be? Range 7 would start at 0 and stop after 6 because we stop when we get to 7. Range 1 through 8 would start with 1 but stop at 7 because we get to 8. All right, range 0, 45. So we're going to start with 0. We're going to go up by 5 and stop at 35 because we stop when we get to 40. All right, range 0, 16, 3. So we start at 0. We go up by 3 and we stop at 15. That's less. So 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. We stop because we got to 16, even though like we went up by 3, we'd go past it. But so we go, all right, 0, -10, -2. So we're going to start with 0. We're going to go down by 2 each time, but we're going to stop when we get to -8. All right, range 0. So let's see, would that be empty, or would we start with 0? Would it be 0 by itself, or would it be empty? You know, that's a really good question. I'm not 100% sure. We have this up here, and we can always double check any of these answers. Range 0 is an empty list. So we'll make sure we click the empty list. All right, range 1, 0. How do we start with 1 and go down to 0 without an answer? That would be an empty list as well. All right, range 5, 1 by -1. So we're going to start with 5 and go down, but we stop when we get to 1. Let's submit this, see if my answer key is good. I got a 3 out of 3. So hopefully you guys did all right today. Got a 5 out of 5 on all your quizzes, and I will see you guys next time for day 2.